we have in our tradition, and one of the things that we struggle, I feel like a lot of people struggle with this issue about relevance, and Sister Ghaidat mentioned it, keeping things relevant. And one of the things I never understood about that was, I just don't get what's not relevant. I mean, I know sometimes the way the deen is presented in such a way that makes it hard for you to sort of see how it's relevant, but you know, life is about stuff happens. Life is about just stuff happens, right? And you know, you can't control what's going to happen. You can't control what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to send your way. The only thing you can control is the choices you make in life. The decisions you make about your own self. This is my body, this is my mind, this is my hand, this is my leg, you know, this is my brain. What am I going to think? What am I going to move? What am I going to do? That's the only thing you have. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us things, and the question is, how are we going to react? And if you're somebody who's living and you have no principle or basis or like way or process by which you choose, then you're just an animal. بل هم كالأنعام بل هم أضل. هم كالأنعام بل هم أضل. I mean, they are like, you know, just animals or cattle that just are grazing, you know, and they're even worse than that, because it's like what. So deen is relevant. Deen is just relevant, period, because deen is that process and is that thought process. Now, one of the beautiful things that our sister mentioned was that we should make dua with the belief that it's going to be answered. And one of the beautiful things about that, Ibn Ata'illah al-Sakandari said in his Kitab al-Hikam, it's the aphorisms of Ibn Ata'illah. He has these kind of wisdoms that he has a book that collects them. And one of them is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put it on your tongue, then know that it was Allah's will that He was going to answer that. In other words, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants something for you, then the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala implements that is that He makes it be a dua on your tongue. And so we should really have that sincere conviction about our dua. And inshallah, tonight will be a powerful night for us to remember and to make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, one of the things about life is that, you know, a lot of the scholars, they liken the purification of the soul to the way gold is purified. They use kind of purification of metals and gold as kind of like a metaphor, kind of like an example of how the human soul is purified. That same Ibn Ata'illah said, I'm forgetting the Arabic exactly right now, but the basic idea is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to know Him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants you to get closer to Him, that is Allah's will for you, and that's Allah's will for all of us. And so the meaning of his aphorism was, if you don't get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the cushions of على وسائد الامتنان سيق إليه في قلائد الامتحان, that if the person does not go closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sitting on the cushions of Allah's ni'mah, sitting on the cushions of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if the person does not draw nearer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that way, Allah will send him an affliction. Allah will send him an affliction so that he can get closer to Allah in that way. So if you don't get closer to Allah when Allah is sending you ni'mah, when life is easy, when life is, there's no hardship, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will actually send you a hardship so that under the hardship you get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I can't imagine anything, closer to qala'id al-imtihan, the chains of tribulation than what the people of Syria are going through now. It's like a crucible. Wallahi, I'm Syrian. I'm originally Syrian. And, as a Syrian, I never kind of was into the whole, like I'm Syrian and, I'm Muslim, right? That was just growing up, that's how my dad raised me, my parents, my mom. We never really emphasized the whole, Syrian thing, Arab thing, and all that stuff. And, partly that's a religious thing, I mean, a lot of it obviously comes from faith and putting priorities where they are, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala should be the priority in all of our lives. But the other piece of it was, I just didn't have a good opinion of Syrians. I didn't think, just, superficial, just people, just kind of wimps, just wussy kind of people that all want to be doctors and want to marry some blonde girl with blue eyes, Mercedes, Magarfish. I mean, it's just like a pathetic culture that is just like, everything's like really cheesy and retarded, and like, wallahi, and the fact of the matter is, that's what amazed me about this revolution. Like, when the things happen in Egypt, wallahi, everybody's like, my wife's Egyptian, right? So we'd be around with the Egyptians, and when Mubarak, they're like, Abbas, Syria, Syria's next, we look forward to Syria being next. I'm like, man, I think Syria's gonna move, give me a break, dude, But subhanAllah, this is exactly the point I'm trying to make, is when, and that's why the scholars, many of them, said that, to purify, they likened the purification of the soul to the way you purify metals, because the way you purify metal is you put the pieces of the metal in a crucible, and then you put the crucible into the heart of the fire, so that the most intense heat can get on that crucible and melt all the metal, so that the different layers of metal will then form different layers, and so that you can extract the pure gold out of it. And that's exactly what we saw in Syria. Wallahi, it's amazing. These people that was my opinion of them. Look at their bravery. Look at their sacrifice. Look at how difficult they were. The difficulties they're dealing with and how they're dealing with it. Look at their forgiveness in certain situations. Wallahi, everybody's focusing on the, many people who are against intervention and say we should keep this peaceful and all that kind of stuff, which I personally support that opinion. But at the same time, look at the difficulties people are going through, okay? I mean, have some sympathy. Obviously, these people in Homs in particular, it's only natural they're going to want to defend themselves. And they have every right to. They have every right to defend themselves. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allahumma saddid ramyahum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make their aim straight to shoot and protect themselves, defend their families and their homes and their property. The sister, I was expecting her to mention some stories. She's got some personal stories that she herself knows from her hometown. Sister Haida was talking to us earlier. And so, I mean, the things they're going through is amazing. But even till now, the forgiveness that some people are doing is unbelievable. In Dar'a, those people whose children were tortured. The first group of children, before Hamza al-Khatib's body was sent back mutilated, there was a group of children, they were sent back, all their fingernails were all plucked out. I don't know if you all knew that story. Which, by the way, that's not a new tactic. That's, my uncle in the 80s got that. One of my, he's not direct uncle, he's the wife of my aunt, the husband of my aunt. And, he got that. That's just standard procedure in Syria. That's on page 34 of the manual. That's just normal kind of thing. But the point is, when that happened, the people in Dar'a, they kept trying to show the army, like, we're not against you. Why are you shooting us? And they'd send them flowers and roses. Now these people in Dar'a, this is like tribal people, okay? These aren't like these people who speak French and like are all kind of like, cutesy. These are people who, it's in their tradition. You do thought, okay? There's these are you insulted me, okay? I'm supposed to kill you now. That's the type of tradition they're coming from. And despite that, they were struggling. And they were trying to break through these people who have lost their hearts. Wallahi, as angry as I am at all that's happening and everything, wallahi, I feel sorry for Bashar al-Assad. Wallahi. Who here would wish they were Bashar al-Assad? A'udhu billah. Imagine the whole ummah is making dua against you. Imagine that. Imagine you're somebody in the army of Bashar al-Assad. The whole ummah is making dua against you. The whole ummah, there's qiyams like this qiyam, people are making dua against you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He wants to destroy somebody, It's called istidraj. وَنُمْلِي لَهُمْ إِنَّ كَيْدِي مَتِينٌ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives them, just keeps giving them opportunity after opportunity, because Allah's kaid is mateen. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His devising, His plan is strong, it's powerful, it's undeniable. And so what's happening now is a process that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set in motion. And Allah knows where it's going. Only Allah knows where it's going. That's where tawakkul comes in. Tawakkul. I'qil wa tawakkul. The people they're doing the i'qil. They're going demonstrations. We're doing i'qil here. We're tying our camel. Part of, people think that i'qil wa tawakkul. I'qil means do the means. Do the means. Part of the means is spiritual means. It doesn't mean just go into the marketplace and buy and sell. It also means raise your hands and dua. They're both. They go together. They go together. And so we're taking the means here to do dua and make dua, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to ease upon the people in Syria. And we hope that, we're not going through the same difficulty as they are, but we can see the pictures and we can see the images, and our hearts reach out to them, or our hearts are sympathetic with what's happening. And so, inshallah, let's try to benefit from this imtihan ourselves. Let's not let this, just like the sister mentioned, that we just kind of see these things and hear these things and see what's happening. This is a time of transformation. Wallahi, this ummah, some of you kids, you're too young to remember. But I'm maybe 10 years, 15 years older than a lot of you guys. And when I was growing up, there was really no hope that the ummah's going anywhere, man. Wallahi, everything was negative. All the news was negative. And this is happening in Syria. Wallahi, I prefer this a million times to what we were living, a couple years ago. I don't know if every Syrian agrees with me on this, but for me, I prefer this a million times to this nifaq and this minhibbak. We love you. All this nifaq that they do, that they, show these, worship these satans, these shayateen, who have destroyed these Muslim countries, destroyed our tradition. Wallahi, they destroyed our tradition. They destroyed it. Because, we're an intellectually vibrant ummah. Look at how retarded our ummah is right now. You read the books of aqidah, you read the books of fiqh, you read the book, and you think of this amazing thought that came out of this ummah. And look at how retarded it is right now. Why is that? There's no freedom of communication. The ulama are not free to teach the people. The people cannot learn and improve themselves. Somebody gets too religious, they think he's whatever, and people get thrown up and thrown in jail and stuff. This is the problem. And this is this transformation that's happening now. Wallahi, Allah knows where it's going. Maybe it's going downhill more. Allahu a'lam. But tafa'alu bil khayri tajiduh. The Prophet ﷺ said, hope for what's good, hope for something that's beautiful, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send you that. And so I have a tafa'ul, I have a hopeful optimism from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that this is a time of transformation. Wallahi, I went to Egypt. My wife is Egyptian. I went to Egypt this winter. I went to Egypt in 2005. I was like, get me out of here, man. It was just depressing. And garbage everywhere and problems and all that. And on top of all that, stupid posters and Mubarak pictures everywhere and all that kind of stuff. Everybody's afraid. People are nervous. There's a tense. There's the air. You can cut through a knife. It's there in the air. I mean, I felt it in Syria when I went in 1995. Last time I've been in Syria was like 15 years ago. And same kind of thing. There's a volume. I mean, it affects the people. And this time I went back, just as dirty, probably dirtier, just as polluted, probably more polluted, just as ugly, or even more ugly. But wallahi, I felt so good there. Wallahi, I felt so good. The posters are not there anymore. People are speaking freely. There's like just a positive vibe. I'm looking forward to something like that for Syria as well, and inshallah for the entire ummah. This is part of a process. This is part of a realignment process. This ummah has been in the dungeons and in the trenches, and there's very clear signs of just the level is rising, the sea is rising, and it's lifting the ship. And so we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala